All right, baby. 50. Welcome to the Knicks Film School Postgame Show, where, boy, oh boy, that night was chock full of stuff to talk about. And we could start in any number of different places. I feel compelled, even with Jalen Brunson coming back tonight, even with OG Anunoby in the midst of a mid-career leap with capital L, even in the midst of what was a very telling performance from a group of guys that are clearly going to need a little bit more time to gel, although the effort was certainly there. And we'll talk about the rotation. We'll talk about all kinds of stuff. I think I have to start with 50 wins. And if you're a Knicks fan who's, maybe recent addition to this greatest fan base in all of sports, one of the largest fan bases in all of sports, it might seem inconsequential. It might seem like an odd place to start because this team has made winning 50 games. I understand it's only second straight year that they've done it, but it feels routine. And given the moves that they made this summer to vault themselves into the top tier of contenders league wide, in no uncertain terms, 50 wins was a bare minimum expectation. But you've been a fan for a while, and I'm talking about you could go back to when I go back, which is the mid 90s. If you go back to the late 70s or mid 70s rather, or early 70s, I should say, when the team was done winning championships. And if you go back even further than that, I know there's some of you out there, this organization has had a lot of stretches where they were not particularly good. And 50 wins means something. It means something to those of us who really felt hopeless at times through the 2000s and then in certainly the 2010s, right up until the day that Leon Rose was hired. I was talking to somebody at the watch party last night, or yesterday afternoon, I should say, who was reminiscing, who was telling me that he started following Knicks Film School during the 2019-20 season, when they famously started 4-18. David Fizdale got fired, and those days don't seem that long ago, to me at least. So, yeah, I think I have to start with 50 wins. Second consecutive season with 50 wins. And again, they're not obviously, needless to say, going to be celebrating 50 wins in that locker room. I doubt much is even going to be said about it because expectations change. Expectations change when you get a player like Jalen Brunson on your roster. Expectations change when you make the moves that they made this summer. Still worthy of a celebration and noting it and just remembering that even as things are never as good as we want them to be, because unless you're, it's the night you're celebrating a title, there's always something left to be desired. There's always something to worry about. There's always something to concern yourself with. But what I think makes sports enjoyable is these little benchmarks and things to check, the boxes to check along the way. And tonight was a nice one. 50 wins. And I do think that there is some level of appropriateness that it came against Kevin Durant's current team, even though he did not play for that team tonight, because when Kevin Durant chose to go to the Brooklyn Nets over the Knicks in 2019, well, that was just supposed to be the end of the franchise, and we were supposed to fold up and be on our merry way. And the fact that this thing has turned around in the way it has turned around, where I'm going to be sitting here tonight answering, maybe not angry super chats, but perturbed super chats about why the 11th man on the roster, wasn't the 9th man on the roster, or the third guy off the bench, or whatever the case may be. These are first world problems to have, folks, and I want to emphasize that. So congrats to the Knicks for winning 50 games. Leon Rose, Tom Thibodeau, Worldwide Wes, Brock Aller, certainly, all the way on down to everybody on the roster. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, status check. Magic number is now 1 for the Knicks to clinch the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. At press time, Indiana, I believe this was their first lead of the night that they just took. They are up 79-78. Things looked at times to be teetering on the edge of Denver, maybe thinking about running away with it in the first half. Unfortunately, Denver is not fully Denver. They haven't really been fully Denver all season. And so Indiana came back in it, despite the fact that Nikola Jokic, as I am looking at it right now, has 29.7 rebounds and 11 assists, but can't win games by yourself, let alone titles, even though Devin Booker certainly tried tonight. So I will keep everybody updated on that game as it continues. And obviously, if we have, I don't know that anybody's going to be celebrating clinching the 3rd seed, but I certainly would like to not have anything else to worry about for the rest of the regular season. So we'll keep you updated on that. Next order of business, Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson could have gone 0 for however many shots he took tonight. And I don't know that I would have cared all that much, provided that he did the most important thing, which is that he came out of this game unscathed. Played 34 minutes, obviously was not himself in any way, shape, or form, as Breen was noting on the broadcast. His timing was not right. He was, I could look it up. Probably don't need to. I don't think that there have been 3 games this season where Jalen Brunson took this few shot attempts. There was exactly 1 game this season where Jalen Brunson took this few shot attempts, and it was a blowout win over the Charlotte Hornets where he scored 24 points on 8 shots, and that's because 6 of his 8 made field goals were threes, and he also got to the line 8 times, making 7. So this was, I think when you consider the point total that he ended up with in Charlotte, I think this was comfortably Jalen Brunson's least aggressive game, most passive game of the season. And you better believe that that was not by accident. I want to get back to that in a second, but I just want to reemphasize, came out of this game healthy. He looked like he was moving okay. The timing stuff, the reintegrating with his teammates stuff, that's all going to come. I don't think anybody should be worried about that. We're sitting here, what is it, Sunday night? The playoffs start for the Knicks in either 13 or 14 days from now. So he's going to have a lot of time to get himself back to looking like Jalen Brunson. And what that looks like on this roster now, after what we've seen over the last 15 days, becomes a much more interesting question. The transition was certainly not seamless tonight. They are very, very lucky that they play a team that is certainly not the least talented or among the least talented teams in the league. But if you ever want to watch a basketball team that is playing without a soul, watch this year's Phoenix Suns. And I was thinking about it earlier today when Andrew was doing the pregame pod, which was a lot of fun, and the guest was great. And I don't blame him or any other person commenting on the Suns for this. But like, I was thinking to myself, so because they're probably going to fire Bud this summer. So their last 3 coaches will have had 2 Coach of the Year awards to their resume in Monty Williams and Mike Budenholzer, 2 championships on their resume in Frank Vogel and Mike Budenholzer, and a conference championship on their resume in Monty Williams. And yet all of these people apparently are going to be deemed too stupid or not worthy to do this job. And it's going to be, Bud's fault now. The rot is in the walls. And I could say that because I know what it feels like to watch a team where the rot is in the walls. So I don't know what they do this summer. I'm happy that I don't have to deal with those problems over here in New York. So yeah, they're lucky they were playing Phoenix tonight, even with Booker being on a heater. It's funny. Lee got down to, I think, 5 points in the fourth quarter, and I was never remotely worried that they were going to lose this game. So yeah, it was not seamless. There were a lot of turnovers. There was a lot of, at times, hesitation in terms of how the guys were going about their business. I saw Jalen Brunson make a pass that I wouldn't have expected him to make in 20 years, which is when he was wide open. I mean, he made a Ben Simmons pass. He was wide open under the basket and tried to throw it to Mikal Bridges in the corner, completely failing to account for the fact that there was a human being wearing a Suns uniform between him and said corner. It just goes to show how everybody, but especially Jalen Brunson, most especially Jalen Brunson, was out there looking to make cognizant of the elephant in the room, that clearly the Knicks, although they needed Jalen Brunson to come back because there are stretches against good defenses where you just need an elite shot creator, and Jalen Brunson is the only one of those on this team, although there is certainly someone else that is trying to make that a conversation. I promise we're getting to him. But I think it all comes in the context of this larger picture. Because Brunson and everybody else, the intentionality is there. That's what it's funny. It was his worst turnover I think I've ever seen. And yet I was thrilled to see it, because it shows that Jalen Brunson came back with number one, with a bullet on his mind is, man, I got to make sure I don't disrupt this. I got to add to this. I got to amplify this. And we don't know what that looks like. I quoted in my newsletter today, following yesterday's win against the Hawks, that the shot attempts from pre-Brunson to now, for the most part, are not that different for these guys. Karl-Anthony Towns has took one more shot per game while Brunson was out. Mikal Bridges took half a shot more per game when Brunson was out. Josh Hart actually has been shooting less with Brunson out, about one fewer shots per game. And OG Anunoby is the one with the big difference, about 3.5 shots more per game, even more if you account for the last 8 or 9 games. So it's not like there isn't an opportunity for everybody to eat and everybody to shoot the number of shots that they either want to shoot or feel that they deserve to shoot or feel that they need to shoot to be the best version of themselves, and thus the Knicks being the best version of themselves. I did not expect that to happen overnight, and certainly not in one game, regardless of who they were playing against. And again, it was helpful that they were playing this crummy Suns team. So the 15 turnovers by the Knicks, not a surprise at all. What the other thing I was very encouraged by, 28 assists on 40 made field goals. I thought you saw, again, that concerted effort. While it wasn't always pretty and it did result in some turnovers and some weird stuff, I thought it also resulted in a lot of good stuff. Guys were looking to make the extra pass. At no point tonight, other than maybe Brunson's first shot attempt, which I thought was interesting, where he was kind of went ISO into a mid-ranger. I can't imagine what was running through his mind at that point. I don't think that there was a single shot attempt tonight where I was like, man, that's not the right shot there. Every shot, from the starters at least, I'm not going to speak about the bench yet, every shot from the starters felt like it was a good shot. It was a good attempt. It was an attempt that came within the flow of the offense, or if it wasn't necessarily in the flow of the offense, it was an earned attempt. It was a solid attempt based on the player, where he was taking the shot, who was taking the shot, all those things. So I liked that. I was very encouraged by that. As we settle into whatever this new normal is, the intention has to be there first and foremost, and the intention was there. If the intention is there, I think the results will come, even if they don't have a lot of time to put that together. And the reason I think the results will come, after I've been talking for 15 freaking minutes, talk about burying the lead, is because OG Anunoby is, I feel like I have to keep one-upping myself in how I discuss what we are witnessing, but it is very much a what we are witnessing situation. We are witnessing something with OG Anunoby that, I'm sorry, has come out of nowhere. Because if you have watched this player over the course of his career, you have seen a guy who is very clearly skilled, very clearly talented, very clearly has confidence in himself. But that seems to, when he, tries to do more, he's always been a very much, for me at least, even last year when he first came here and the Knicks were on fire and he was, had a positive plus minus in every single regular season game he played. It always felt like a less is more situation. Yeah, there would be nights where he'd be hot from three. And even earlier this season, there were nights where he'd be cutting, perfectly, and Towns would be finding him, or Jalen Brunson would be finding him, whoever would be finding him. But there was never a sense that he was going to be able to put those final finishing touches on his game to elevate him to whatever level he seems to be at right now. And I'm kind of at a loss for words because this feels somewhat unprecedented. Again, he's in the 8th year of his career. I understand it's been an interesting career, and there was a lot of movement in Toronto, and he started his career off an injury, and that team was stacked, and he was whatever he was, 8th, 9th man or 7th man, whatever he was on that championship team. So it's been a journey, but boy, oh boy, did not see this coming in any way, shape, or form. And for him to go out there in Brunson's first game back and to be like, yeah, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. And it maybe took a little while to get him going. And then in the third quarter, we saw it was the second highest scoring quarter of his career. I mean, the biggest shot of the game was when the Knicks had 0 field goals for a stretch of time that lasted over 6 minutes. And OG just confidently walked into a mid-ranger and drained it. And then on the very next possession, drives, draws the help, makes a perfectly placed, perfectly timed kick-out pass to Mikal Bridges, who had an outstanding look from deep. And we'll get to Mikal too. He was very good tonight. He just missed the shot, but it was a great pass. And then OG shortly thereafter found Mikal Bridges cutting for what was a nice, easy attempt that went down. It's a leap. It's a leap, and it's a leap that needs to be accounted for. And so far, one game in, it seems like the Knicks did a good job accounting for it. Now, I do think it's going to be interesting because you have Karl-Anthony Towns, and I saw Benji tweeted about this, that Cat was a little bit too passive down the stretch, a little bit too much of a bystander. He's like, so you don't have to worry about Cat being selfish. And Brunson, clearly the intentionality is there on his part to make sure his guys keep going. And so you have OG doing this. Bridges, I thought, did a beautiful job tonight moving without the ball. Again, shout out to Benji. He was talking about the different ways that OG and Mikal can continue eating, so to speak, in this offense. And it's going to be different because, Mikal has been very effective on the ball against specific coverage, drop coverage. So when you're in a situation where he doesn't get to have that many possessions on the ball, or he's going against teams that maybe don't play drop coverage, how is he going to be effective? Well, he's going to be effective, one, by hitting his catch and shoot threes. And tonight, I think he was 2 of 3, so that's a great sign. You still don't love that he's not taking many threes. I mean, every game it seems like he's taking 2, 3, 4 3-point attempts. That's not enough, but we'll leave that be for the moment. And moving without the ball. And playing off of the gravity of his teammates and putting himself into situations where he's getting easy looks, but he doesn't necessarily have to work for them, but they're still good looks. I thought he did a beautiful job of that tonight. There were 3 straight possessions after that OG, after he missed that 3. Well, you could count the missed 3 because he moved to get to that spot. Then he had the nice cut where OG found him off ball. It was a cut that I think it was Brunson, or I forget who found him. Somebody found him. Move without the ball. Then was the OG pass. And then he drew a foul when he was moving without the ball. And they fouled him before he could even get it. All that off-ball movement is fantastic stuff. And that's what he needs to keep doing. So again, some inconsistency, some funky stuff here that needs to be worked out. You got to work out the kinks. The intentionality is there. The stuff by Bridges is there. The stuff by Anunoby is there. Cat, again, I know he was quiet in the second half. He was his usual outstanding self in the first half. They needed every bit of what Karl-Anthony Towns gave them before halftime. Finished with 19 points on 13 shots. And Hart, Hart's going to have to find his way. And the other thing I was curious about tonight, and we should mention Deuce McBride came back, only played 16 minutes. I thought he was good in the first half, less of an impact in the second half. But Tibbs gave him a run with the other starters with Hart on the bench. Because Hart had played a lot of minutes, ended up playing 38. That's more than I'd like him to play. 4 turnovers, 5 assists, 10 rebounds. Okay. 2 of 6 from the field. Hart's still not right. And I don't know how he's going to get right with all this other stuff going on. Of everybody, he might be the guy I'm most worried about right now, which I'm sure people are screaming at their screens, being like, "Oh no, shit! I've been most worried about Josh Hart for months. Why the hell is he playing so much?" It's a fair quandary, but I'm not going to be too bothered by that. I know I've been talking a lot here. We're going to get to the super chats in a moment. Last thing I guess I want to say is about the rotation. I was not surprised in the least that he stuck with what is the quote unquote healthy rotation, or what has been the healthy rotation before this onslaught of injuries. If you know Tom Thibodeau, he is obviously going to give guys every opportunity to continue to have their job, especially if those players had been doing an adequate job before they got injured. And I won't go on and on about Campaign. I did my whole thing on Campaign last night. He's been very good. I did not think he was particularly good tonight. I thought his stint in the early fourth quarter was really part of the reason that Phoenix crept back in this game. So, look, it'll be interesting with DeLon Wright being right there and plays a more. The seal. Someone else was saying, I'm stealing somebody's line. I apologize. I would give you credit if I could remember. But somebody was like, Cam's ceiling is higher, but the floor is lower. And I think that's a perfect way to put it. DeLon Wright's steady as she goes. The defense, obviously, the size. I thought he really ran the show well in Payne's absence. And, it all comes down to can he hit shots? And he's been hitting shots with the Knicks so far. So, and Tibbs is a guy who I think he will hit it. For him, it's more important, are you shooting it? If you're hesitant, you could go fuck off, I guess, unless your name is Josh Hart. But everybody else, if you're hesitant, you can, that's going to be a problem. Wright didn't hesitate when he was open. So I am monitoring that situation. I still would be surprised if there was a change before the postseason. And I don't have any problem with that. But I would keep an eye on that moving forward into the playoffs. And I guess the only other thing, I don't know what else I don't think anybody expected Tyler Kolek or Precious Achiuwa to play tonight. I'm not surprised Landry Shamet got 14 minutes. The fact that Landry Shamet, let's end on that. That's an odd place to end, but I thought, Landry hit some shots tonight, so that's a good job by him. The fact that Landry played 14 minutes tonight, and the fact that there was Bridges played 39, Hart played 38, OG played 36, so it's not like those guys' minutes were all that far down. That's significant to me. Because that, to me, if Shamek went out there tonight and played, 8 minutes or 12, 11, 10 even, the fact that he played 14 minutes, that says to me that I'm going to owe Andrew Claudio a Red Bull, because that says to me he's going to start the playoffs in the rotation. And I don't have a problem with that. Again, just like with Campaign, if you don't produce playoff time, there's no time for hurt feelings, you're going to be out. But I think he is going to start Shamet in the playoff rotation, and then we'll see what happens from there.